The Financial Times' front page. Again, the Syria issue makes the picture story there at the top, but their main story focuses on cash in our councils. Yes, English councils.
That's right. So the FT reports that nearly half of English councils have run down their financial reserves in the past 2 years, which leaves them in a very vulnerable position. Local government has faced big cuts to local government, to grants from central government since 2010, really. And that's happening at the same time as councils are facing rising demands as a result of an ageing population. There's great demand on social care services for older people. And so councils are caught in this really tough crunch. And I think experts are quite worried about what's going to happen if you've got councils cutting back and cutting back and cutting back. You've got older people who aren't able to act without means, who aren't able to access care on the one hand. So you've got a charity like Age UK reporting there are growing numbers of older people not getting help with the basic tasks they need. And really this raises a question of what's going to happen if a council goes bust, if they can't raise enough through council tax, if they're in a poor area and they've got services they have to provide and their central government grants are going down. It creates a very tricky equation for them.
Is this a crisis, do you think, in the councils?
Well, I think there's no doubt that councils are having to tighten their belts and all across a range of services. And I mean, everybody will have witnessed it, whether it's, less bin collections. I mean, these things really matter to people. And I think as the local elections loom, we'll see how that plays out in the polling booth.
Indeed. OK, let's move on to the Express page 2, because you've picked out a story here about foreign aid. And is this about the public being better informed about where the money's spent?
So I was interested in this story because we've got the relatively new International Development Secretary, Penny Mordaunt, saying that she's going to change the way that international development works, the aid budget and so on and so forth, talking about how she's going to crack down on abuses. And I just sort of inwardly groaned because we've been hearing this from international development secretaries for absolutely years. And yet these abuses of taxpayers' money going to all sorts of schemes that don't really seem to be particularly pressing continue. So I think that there's a real loss of confidence among a lot of voters as to the way that international aid is being used. And the international aid budget is huge relative, for example, to the Foreign Office budget.
Certainly the story makes front pages of papers like The Express, doesn't it? But how big an issue is the misuse of
I'm not sure how much traction it gets with voters, actually. I think if you ask voters...
It gets a lot with conservative-leaning voters.
But I think if you ask voters in general what their top 3 issues are, international aid is very, very unlikely to feature. And while there may be the odd case of, of money going to a project that people don't think is worthy, I think on the whole, the money is spent well. We have seen a number of scandals over the last few months with charities, for example, like Oxfam, questions being asked about their safeguarding policies out in the field. But I think, there is public support for international aid, and it's really important for Britain strategically. Of course, we should always look at how we can spend it better and more effectively, but I don't think there's any evidence that this is an area of government spending that is more ineffective than others.
OK, well, on to one issue now that I know that a lot of people will be interested in, and that's features on the front of the Daily Telegraph. I think it pops up elsewhere as well. Danger of 6 glasses of wine. What are the dangers?
Dear, oh dear, we just don't think it's nearly enough. So apparently, if you have 6 glasses of wine a week, that is too much, which we're a bit worried about. I think it's specifically how many you have in any one sitting. And Sonia, I know, has been working out the figures in meticulous detail to work out just how much of our life is going to be cut off as a result of...
Well, apparently, 1 extra glass of wine over the limit cuts your life expectancy by half an hour. So just a few bits of quick math suggest that 2 extra glasses of wine a week, if you're 40 and you live till you're 80, or maybe it was 70.
She's really good at maths. Yeah. I'm going to totally leave this one to you.
We could be talking months off your life. For 2 extra glasses of wine.
Do you think that slightly changes the joy? Like if you've had 2 glasses of wine, you're about to have the third, will you think, oh, that's half an hour gone, or will you just think,
you'll just forget, you won't be able to do any maths after an extra glass.
Yes, exactly. And I think most people will just not want to think about it.
I think you're absolutely right.
OK, on that note, we will leave it, but you'll both be back at 11:30. No glasses of wine for either of you until after that. But for the moment, thanks very much indeed.